I'd like to thank our friends at Sardine for making today's episode possible. They have over 4,000 signals. From device, email intelligence, telco, and AML monitoring, the Fraud Squad is there to help you make the right decisions. They ship new features weekly to help the fight, and they are never afraid to jump right in there with you and make sure you have the rules and models you need. For everyone attending MRC this March, please be sure to visit them at booth 210 on the show floor and see what everyone is talking about. It's good to have a fraud squad behind you, and with Sardine, you get the best fraud squad around. Please visit www.sardine.ai today to learn more. Let's get to the episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fraud Boxer Podcast. I got Cambria back for another episode, so say hi, Cambria.
Hey, good to be back.
Yeah, anything changed since we talked the last time,
Not too much. I think my hair might be a little different, but that's par for the course.
The diffuser, right? The diffuser.
Yeah. I'm trying to embrace the curl. My hair's still trying to figure out what's going on. But other than that, just still at Forder. I think what's changed the most is that I know more about how to actually do my job now. I think the last time I spoke, I had just recently joined the team, so still kind of getting my bearings as far as, what Forder is, what it means to the industry, kind of the impact that it's having, as well as shifting from the customer success side of the business to a pre-sales focused role and supporting the sales process a little bit more directly. So I think that's the majority of what's changed.
And I think that's why we have you here today, is we are going to talk about sales. So I did a podcast with another individual back in December of 21 that a lot of folks said they got a lot of value out of. That person no longer has those episodes available to their audience. I've had a couple of people reach out to me asking if there's any way that they can find those episodes. So it prompted me to think, why don't we just do an updated version of it with what's happening now? MRC is coming out. I'm going to release this episode right before MRC, probably on the Friday before. So I know a lot of emails will have already gone out. A lot of meetings would have already been put on calendars. But for this one, I think, just while people are flying and traveling, they might have a little bit of time to listen to this and hopefully get them in a better mindset before they put feet on the conference floor. So that being said, I do kind of want to talk about sales with you. You've been in sales. Can you kind of just run me through your background of sales a little bit here before we jump right in?
Sure. So as I mentioned on our last episode, and I guess for those of you who aren't as familiar with my background and who I am, I was a customer success manager for the company called Emailage that was acquired by LexisNexis in 2020 for about 5 years, maybe 4. I don't know. Time is a flat circle.
Time is flying right now.
And what that meant in terms of kind of like a sales capacity was I supported the relationships with our merchants the majority of the time post-sale. So I was responsible for managing the contracts, for negotiating upsells. But what that meant from a relationship standpoint is I had to be really familiar with how Emailage was supporting our merchants' businesses, helping provide analytics, building out ROIs if necessary, and all of those types of things. So definitely sales felt like a sales role, but I would say that a lot of the hard work in terms of building a relationship with our merchants had already been done, and I just had to pick up where our sales guys left off. Because we already had a lot of the information. There was already kind of a rapport there. So I was just responsible for making sure that you guys were still happy and understood the value that Emailage was bringing. And then in April of last year, I joined the Forder team in a pre-sales capacity. My official title is Solutions Consultant. And what that means from a sales perspective is I partner with our account executives to get to know the merchants that are our prospects who are looking to potentially use Forder as a solution and get an understanding of their business, what their metrics are, where they might need help from Forder, where we can potentially help, and kind of scope out which of our offerings, which bundle of our offerings makes the most sense, build out an ROI proposal, and help work through kind of the technical aspects of the sales process, so answering integration questions, those types of things. So more from a solution, I'm selling the solution where our AEs are selling for, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I think that this is going to be a pretty good time to kind of just put some framework around like overall what works and what doesn't work. I don't, I try my best to not make this episode be overly negative because I can like quote roast people from time to time. I put up a post on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, like about it being the new year, new sales, everybody's just coming out. I see millions of posts on LinkedIn of people coming out of their company sales meetings, like setting their goals for 2023. Here we go. Now go out and get them, guys. Like handle it. So, I felt inclined at the time because I was getting a lot of emails, and I got a particular email, we'll talk about that in a minute, that just set me off. But that post was a little more popular than I had expected. I got about 10,000 views on that post, which is pretty good for me. Usually, I get between the 3 and the 5,000 on my posts. Not a lot, in the grand scheme of things. There's people out there, there's influencers. I just get tens of thousands of them, like, on the first day. I'm a little slower. I just got a little humble little podcast over here. But, I know that there's a lot of new salespeople specifically in the industry, like a lot of new like people fresh out of college. They're hungry to make that impact, and they are brand new to our industry. So as far as they've ever had exposure to our industry, it's their company. And as far as they know, their company is the best of the best of the best. And you know what? They solved it. They solved fraud. They are the silver bullet. They solved fraud and they just like to just lead with that. Now, I do want to just start right away and to everybody that thinks that like if they ever send an email that says we've solved fraud, you haven't. You've never solved fraud. You don't have a silver bullet. You just haven't. Like I don't care how great your company is, how much funding you have, how big your clients are. You haven't solved fraud. There's no one trick pony for this whole thing. So, what are your opinions about that?
I think that that resonates really strongly with me. Having not only been part of several different solution teams, so Emailage, of course, but then being exposed to all of the solutions under the LexisNexis portfolio, who has acquired a lot of different solutions in the last decade. And then moving to the Forder team, I think, in my experience, it's very evident to me that there isn't a silver bullet. There frankly can't be. Um,
Yep.
and I think to your point, there are a lot of sales folks, and whether they're new to sales or new to the industry, they do only get like the messaging that they're relaying to you is trying to like get you to buy our product or their product is what, marketing is pushing, what enablement is pushing, which isn't
Yeah.
always, exactly what the messaging should be. There was only so many of us with experience like mine or some of my counterparts who have been in the industry for a long time as well, who can kind of get to that next level. And whether they're in a solutions consulting capacity or even the account executive role,
Yeah.
we just haven't been around long enough to be able to dig a little
And
deeper and actually tell you what it is that is better, what is doing better than the other products in the industry, or what we're doing differently, and so on and so forth. And so I think that that's kind of the disconnect is there's kind of no middle ground. There's the folks who are new to the industry or new to sales and don't really have the experience to be able to get beyond that kind of surface level messaging. And then there's folks who have been in the industry for a long time who have made the jump from merchant to vendor like myself. I guess a part of my background that I didn't mention is I was a fraud analyst for quite some time before I jumped over to Emailage. So those of us who have made that
yeah.
jump have just been around long enough to know that no matter what we're selling, no matter what we're trying to get you to buy, there is going to be something that we are doing better or we're doing differently than our competitors in the space or even just other solutions. But it's again not necessarily the silver bullet, and we need to be a lot more conscientious of that.
Yeah, I think so there's a lot in there that I definitely am guilty of. I know when I get these cold pitches, especially when I get, them on LinkedIn, I have just so many blue dots next to my LinkedIn messages of
Yeah.
people I just haven't read. But if I do click on them and look at the people, I would say 90% of them, we have 1, 2, or no mutual contacts, and it's
Right.
really hard to not have mutual contacts with me on LinkedIn if you're in this industry. So that
Mhm.
means you're pretty green. But to your point, that does put them at a disadvantage, is they have to find a way to claw into this industry. And I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. But they sit in their seat, and I've done sales before and I've done cold sales before where it's like how many calls can you make a day? How many pitches can you do in a day? The more the merrier, you're gonna get that no 99% of the time, but that one yes that you're gonna get, is the big one or those warm leads. And I think that a lot of people come into MRC, all these leads that are gonna come out of that are pretty much going to be warm, except for me when I'm scanning my badge at every single booth to try and win a PS5. Um, that's not going to be a warm lead, but I'll take care of that on the back end after I'm playing Hogwarts
Wishful thinking.
Legacy on two screens, you know. But
I think one thing that I do, kind of to your point about the folks sitting in the seats, something that came to mind is, every sales team has a group of the cold sales folks or SDR, so sales development representatives who are more likely new to sales in general, a lot younger in the field, whether it's industry specific or sales specific. And what I think, I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but I can't think of another word, but they're most likely going to be the ones that are making contact with the folks on your side most frequently. They're the ones who are sending those cold pitches, the emails, trying to get a hold of you, the ones that don't have a lot of those mutual contacts. And I think what's hard is, just like you said, they have these their own KPIs that they're trying to accomplish.
yeah,
They're being held to, whether it's number of calls made in a day, which I don't think it's very effective, to number of meetings that actually happen. I think that's something that I've seen work a little bit better. Is
yeah, that's a
does
good point.
the meeting actually turn into a conversation, or does this contact turn into an actual conversation versus how many emails are you sending, right? Um, and I think that's kind of the crux of this whole conversation is, obviously, on your end, you guys have a job that you're doing, and more often than not, you're doing it very well already. And our job on the sales side is to sell you a product that helps you do your job better, like generally speaking, right? And so I think that's where kind of this like point of tension comes through is you're doing really well and you've received accolades and promotions and raises or recognition for the work that you're already doing, for the work that you've done well. And we're telling you, hey, we can do it, we can help you do it better. Or maybe it comes across as you're doing it wrong, or the setup that you have isn't working as well as it could. Um, but I think the primary difference is w- on the sales side, we don't get paid unless you talk to us, kind of thing. Like, you get paid regardless, but we don't get paid
I
unless
mean,
you're
yeah,
talking to us.
I,
So
I
it's
guess like
like
we do,
yeah, and I hate to make it about, like, the money. Um,
but that's why we're all here. I ain't
yeah,
volunteering my
that's why
time.
we're all here. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're all here to get our bags, right? And it's just like, and I know that that's part of the, like, risk reward thing that comes with being in sales. Um, but I think that that's something that a lot of folks tend to forget. Like, "Oh, sales guys are so annoying, like, sales guys are so aggressive," and it's like, well, yeah, like, they have a lot more skin in the game when it comes to getting a conversation with someone, right?
Yeah. So I will say that I've always said, the best way to survive in sales is to get out of sales,
That
especially like in like higher end like SaaS sales. Um,
definitely.
because like you could be like the number one salesperson at your company like in a year, and then have two bad quarters, and then you're out on your
Yeah.
ass. You know, like
Yep.
that's just how it is. It's a ruthless game, and I think one of the things that's interesting in our industry right now is the industry. It's grown a lot. It's probably tripled over the last few years,
Mhm.
but the so has the product offerings that are available to us. And now it's conglomerating a little bit, it's shrinking down consolidation. LexisNexis and Mastercard are big parts of that, as we all know. But I will say, at the end of the day, like there's only so much food to go around, so to speak, in this industry. So, and the deals are getting longer. What used to be 1 year deals are now 3 year deals, up to 5 years, depending on like how much of a break you ask for in price for a longer deal. But, yeah, it's an interesting place, and I understand that salespeople do have to get that money, and I think we're gonna talk about this as we go into the next part here, which is, like, what doesn't work and what does work, and we'll talk about relationships as sales works specifically for relationships. Like, you and I have a relationship in this industry, and I've worked with you at multiple companies. Now, I don't work with you at Forder now. I have worked with Forder in the past, but I still pick up the phone when you call because of the relationship that I have, and we'll talk about that, I think, in a little bit. So let's start with some of the bad. I think we'll go to the negative, and then we'll end on a positive note with things that do work. So, I have some of my personal opinions of things that don't work, and I would love to hear your feedback as having been on the other side of this. So, I'm going to kind of go out of order on the list that we have. I'm going to start with the second one that we have, and then I'm going to go back to the first one. As everybody knows, I talk about my notes. I run notes on my podcast. I'm a very organized person, so I like things to be a certain way, and it helps with the flow. But The very first thing that I, especially during when we're talking about cold emails and getting those leads to warm up, and I got one a couple weeks ago, and it was another one of the main prompts of that post is if you're going to send me a cold email straight up to my email, or it happens to my LinkedIn, make sure you get my name and my company name right, but specifically my name. If you're calling me Justin or Jason while sending an email to Jordan.Harris, you probably aren't gonna get my business. Like, I could tell you're doing the least amount of work humanly possible to get the most amount, you're casting the widest net you possibly can. But I will look at your company name, and I will get that company name right in my mind when I'm walking by your booth, and I will make a comment about it. And I probably will put up a LinkedIn post. So, what are your thoughts on sending cold emails and getting the damn information right?
I think that it shouldn't be something that happens probably as often as it does. What I will
I know
say
there's CRMs that, like,
yeah.
automatically do it,
Yeah,
you know?
so most sales teams have some kind of tool that helps them to an extent automate their workflow, whether that's sending out email campaigns for different events or the cold pitches, as you mentioned. Um, Sometimes even just like, hey, Forder's doing this thing. Let me know if you want to talk more about it. Whatever. Um, and at least most of the systems that I have either worked with or seen my teams work with, there is the ability to QA the data quality. Um, it's just it takes maybe an extra couple of hours worth of work before you send the campaign, but it could also just come down to the quality of data in the CRM. And again, that's just a little bit of extra legwork that the reps should be doing before they're ever sending anything out. Even if it's just like, hey, this email says Jordan Harris. I'm going to look up Jordan Harris on LinkedIn and see if his name is actually Justin because this thing says
Right?
Justin, right? And I know that that's something that probably some folks don't want to take, maybe not want to, but with the pressures that they have for their KPIs and
I
getting out like
see
emails and so
yeah.
on. Um, my
I see
question
more experienced people do that. Like, I see people that have been in sales a lot longer
yeah,
send bad information.
and what
And
I think
it's like they come from, like, other companies where they had, like, big roles, and, like, they're
oh,
just like I
okay,
think they're trying to apply what they did at their last company
totally.
to their new company.
Right, and, like, again, I think that just comes down to the quality of data in the CRM. When I was a CSM, we did I don't do a lot of emailing in general anymore, but when I was a CSM, we managed quite a few, like, existing customer, like, email campaigns and things like that, and, like, our first step was always, like, QAing the data, like, making sure that the emails that we had were right, that the folks that we had listed were even still at that company, if they'd opted in or out of our emails and so on. Um, and I think that I can contribute that to our sales ops team more than anything. Just like, hey, here's the list that we have. Can you make sure it's good? It wasn't something that we were actively doing, but it all depends on the way that the org is structured, right? And I think that it's something that can happen to anyone. So my question would be like, if it's somebody who does do that and they recognize it, not that they always do, but if they send that email and they recognize it, would it make it better or worse for you if they followed up and said, hey, sorry, I know you're Jordan.
It would be more
Justin, not
personal.
Jason.
That's would
Would
start
that help?
it
Okay.
would start the relationship building piece.
Okay.
And then, like, people that own and had take accountability, like, I got a couple of emails from a person actually at that same company.
Hmm.
No, it was a different company, never mind. It was a similar name style of company, you know how everybody's because all the names are taken, so everybody's spelling their stuff different. But I got an email from another person that it it wasn't as I could tell it was a sales pitch, but it wasn't at the same time, you know? And they started with trying to build a relationship, and they just wanted to have they asked me questions that weren't related to my business, and we're gonna talk about that in a second. But
Okay.
they asked me questions about the industry, and I pointed them to places, and they left, and they went and go found those things, and then they came back another week later and asked me questions about the things, so I could tell that they actually went and did
Okay.
what they were intending to do, which showed me that they actually care,
Mhm.
and those people got a phone call with me. They got time, they got FaceTime, and I listened to their pitch, and I listened to their thing, and now I'm more curious. But they didn't come in just swinging with a pitch, you know, like, they actually they admitted they were new to the industry. They admitted that, like, they have seen my name pop up, and they wanted to know how to learn more so they could better understand the industry. Like, they're actually taking time to figure us out, and that meant more to me than all these people because I see a million salespeople come and go. I can't I got the la I was working, through some some POCs at another big fraud provider, and I'm on my 4th rep in a year because people just keep leaving. And I'm sorry, like, I don't have time anymore, and, like, that just shows me in my mind, like, something's going on over there why people keep leaving.
Mhm.
And I don't have time for that volatility, like, I need a stable platform to rely on.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I will say another one that I get quite a bit in these same emails, if they do get my name right, I think the most common one is, they wanna pick my brain about my current strategy.
I've
Like,
I've
have
said
you used
that. I'm
that?
so sorry.
Mm,
I don't do the cold reach outs often. It's more like, contacts that I've like, folks that I've been connected to for a while and just haven't I mean, something I should be better at is staying connected with folks in the industry. I think you're one of the exceptions because we do have such a great relationship. But a lot of folks that I worked with in the past, either when I move on or they move on, it's not because I don't like them or don't care about the relationship. It's just, things happen. And I have a
and there's a
real
lot of us,
yeah,
we gotta
I have a
stand
really
out.
hard time with small talk, and it feels like, oh, if I'm just reaching out to, like, check the box that I reached out, that feels really to me personally, like, I know that a lot of people are really good at this, and it's something that I'm just not good at, like, just be like, "Hey, just checking in, like, how are things going?" Like, I don't like doing that, it feels uncomfortable for me.
Yeah. I
So,
will say when I would used to get emails from you when you were at Emailage when I was at Ticketmaster, and I could tell when you're in your business version versus when you're just, like, normal Cambria,
I do have 2 distinct pitches, like, phone pitches.
Yeah, because like, the conversations that we would have, like, over, like, text messages and stuff they're about the industry, but they're usually different topics of the industry, it's not so salesy, and it's, like, a very different type of person, but, I mean, I understand, like, you gotta do what you have to do, and I needed you to be doing those roles, we were a very, needy client, with our emailage, so I needed to know and you were, like, you're one of the especially as a CSM, you were more one of the on it people, like, sometimes I send emails to CSMs that I have even currently, and I won't hear from them for days, weeks. I would usually hear follow-ups from you like that same day or like the next day uh, on the status of things. So you were on it on that. But we don't need to stroke your ego anymore. I think you're already fully
Thank
yourself,
you.
right? um, so yeah, so the pick my brain. So that to me feels like you want to know what tools I'm using so that you can try and come in at an angle and say why my tool sucks and why your tool's so much better. And it also to me feels like I'm providing some level of consulting to people, especially
Okay,
people that are brand new salespeople. They're like, I want to pick your
that
brain
makes
about
sense.
what you guys think about fraud. It's like I'm trying to provide education to you through your sales pitch. And then you're still
Sure.
going to turn around and spin it on me and act like I don't know what I'm talking about when you've been in this industry for 15 minutes and I've been in this industry for over a decade. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that totally makes sense. I've always I mean, I know that I've always felt like that kind of like hook for an email feels a little weird, but I hadn't thought about it from the perspective of it feels like we're asking you to consult for us. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think in a lot of cases, though, it is a genuine, just like, hey, I just want to chat. And like, I feel like I want to pick your brain is like a really like inoffensive feeling phrase. So I'm wondering, like, if it is someone who genuinely just wants to connect and like get to know you more and hear about like as someone who's an expert in this industry from my perspective, in parentheses, like what kind like how would you prefer to be contacted in that way? If it's someone who maybe you only have a few connections with, they've
Um,
just heard, like you gave an example earlier of someone who had reached out and you like pointed them in a direction. Is that kind of
yeah.
like the
Um,
ideal or like
Yeah, so what I feel if people that genuinely want to learn more about the industry, if they shoot me an email and they ask the questions in the email, but not like 50, not like 100, 1 or 2,
okay,
and then I can point them in a direction to give them other reading materials. I don't wanna jump on a call necessarily and spend 30 minutes of my time
totally.
talking about it because I do charge for that. I do. Like, I do have a consulting rate, and it's not super cheap, and it gets cheaper if you buy boxes or blocks of those hours. But I don't want to just be telling people industry best practices and things that they do that they could do to be better for free, because like they're gonna go
Yeah,
turn that around and turn that into a sales pitch. But if people are like, hey, I just joined this industry, what's 3D secure? I keep hearing people talk about this.
yeah,
I could drop an article in something real quick, because their Google might be broken. And send them off on their way with what they need, and now they're more
Yeah.
equipped with what they need.
Okay. That
Or
makes
if people, I want to know about 2FA, maybe I can link them an episode, and then I get more views. Same thing like why we're re-recording this podcast right now. Uh, I had questions from the person specifically about how they should approach the sales for people in this industry, and I had wanted to send them to that old podcast, but since it's been deleted, um, I wasn't able to. I was able to find a cached version of it on it was hosted on another site, and I use that for now. And that's actually what I use to listen to this to remind myself of what I said, because I don't remember everything that I say all the time. So yeah,
fair
another
enough.
one that works for me, like we're going a little early on the works, but if you talk about my sports teams, I'm more likely to reply it. Just saying, but be accurate on my sports teams.
Can't help you there, but I know
Yeah,
plenty of people who can.
sure. I know you're wearing football stuff all the time, and you're celebrating.
Oh, yeah. You know
You
me.
you're a big Cardinals fan over there, aren't you?
Go to sports ball.
Yeah, go sports ball all day. Okay, so let's talk about one of the big ones that, if you ever do to me, I will never. There's two huge ones that if you ever do to me, I'll never do business with your company at any company that I'm ever at, no matter what. And one of those is just putting time on my calendar without asking me. If you just send me a damn meeting invite and we've never talked about it, we've never set a time or anything, you just cold drop me a straight up calendar invite, we're done. It's
How
just a
often does it
non-starter.
actually happen?
I've had it happen 3 times in the last, I had it happen twice during COVID and once before.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So it's not as okay.
it's not every day, but,
But,
like,
like,
I
3 times is more than once.
yeah, 3 times is more than it's 3 times too many.
Yeah.
But I just wanted I mean, have you ever done that? Like, I just don't know the rationale behind just thinking. I guess maybe if you send 100 meeting invites, one person will accept and just show up, but
The only time I've ever done that is when I've already, like, had an exchange with the person, and they've sent me sometimes, and I say, "Hey, does this one work?" And if I don't get a response back, then I'll just send the
just
invite. That's a
yeah,
little
but, like, at
different,
least you
though.
have like, there's an expectation
Yeah,
that an invite could come from that. That's a different
exactly.
story.
Yeah.
I've been using Calendly lately, and that's pretty cool, for me to send out to people and say, "Hey, these are my times available." But just don't ever cold put a time on a calendar, anybody ever.
No notes.
Yeah, I mean, those usually it's attached to some email saying, "I'd like to show you what we have, but, or I'd like to show you how you could lower your chargeback rate." You don't know my chargeback rate. It could already be low. Like, don't be assuming. Remember what assume makes, everybody. But, another thing that I think is super important for people to understand is, these deals don't happen in 2 days. Pushing for speed turns me off a lot. Like, I have an existing fraud vendor. I have a deal with it. I am not gonna make a decision to change my entire life and my entire strategy. I'm not gonna make it in 30 days. I'm not gonna make it in 60 days. So you have to understand that these deals are gonna have a long lead time. And then if I start signing a deal, the implementation time, depending on the size of the business, could be 12 to 18 months. So and I know we got these no code, low codes dropping into CDN. There's still some problems with those about how redirects happen and things like that. But they're a good start to getting this easier integration done. But people need to understand that procurement processes, contracts, negotiations take time, and my deals that I'm still using also have an expiration date too. So, what are your thoughts around that?
I hard agree. I think that in, like, a perfect world so I think that a lot of these, I can improve your chargebacks by this much. We can get this implemented in X days. Like, we've signed deals in 90 days or less, whatever. I think that those are either, like, best case scenarios or, like, in a perfect world, like, at Forder, our implementation can take as little as 3 weeks. It can.
Yeah,
Doesn't
if
all
it's all hands on deck. If
Yeah,
all hands on deck
it
on your
doesn't
side, all
always,
hands on
and
deck from my side.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't always, it usually doesn't, but it is, compared to other vendors and, especially if coming from Lexis, it is a relatively straightforward, whatever that means, implementation. I usually see it take a couple of months. And I think that, you know, product teams just assume that because I think that they forget that they're, like, intimately familiar with the code and what it looks like and what it should look like. And I think that sometimes there is, like, an enablement gap between what is actually required for different implementations, or even not outside of the implementation, like the contracting process. There's, like, an enablement gap between, like, what is actually required in order to complete that task, whether it's procurement and legal and MSA review, or it's contracting for pricing negotiations, or it is the implementation and so on. Um, uh, little humble plug, I guess, here. I'm trying to think of the right word. My pre-sales team, our enablement team, and our leadership have done a lot of work working with our deliveries team to try and kind of bridge that gap with things like a mutual delivery plan, where even before we get to the contracting phase, we're meeting with our prospect teams and understanding their infrastructure, understanding, what payment processor they're using, what other tools they have in place, what their CRM is, how they have their ecom platform set up. Um, Kind of exactly where the solutions are going to be, what data is going to be available, how they're going to be using it, trying to iron out all of those details. And then we're working on an SOW at the same time, which is, even
I
deeper
I
than that.
feel like any
First
company
pitch.
that's engaging in that level of
Yeah,
like if you're planning on moving forward, like a company that I'm doing business with better have those people on that side.
exactly. Exactly.
And they better be doing a plan like that. I think it's one of the things that people fail to understand, especially newer salespeople in this industry, is like these deals aren't like $10,000.
Right.
These deals are like $1 million a
Plus.
year or more over 3 4 years. Like in the salespeople, I understand like when they're getting these like 100,000, 200, $300,000 paychecks off these deals. But at the same time, I'm not going to just spend $1 million a year for the next 3 years with a company that I just met 15 minutes ago.
Right.
Like when I was at Fandango, when we switched our tool from one tool to another, it took 3 years for that company to get that deal. And obviously, like, a lot of salespeople aren't that patient. A lot of salespeople don't even stick around at a company that long. But that's just how long it takes
Hmm.
sometimes to make a change at these companies, because
Yep.
sometimes we're happy with what we want, and then we're gonna be unhappy all of a sudden because something breaks or something changes or they change how the product works fundamentally. And if you have the patience to deal with a sales cycle that long, yeah, you could get that payoff at the end of the day. Some of these
Right.
deals, like I've worked deals that are like $10 million. These people are like the salespeople could make up to $1 million if I sign the deal, and sometimes they still push. And I'm
Right.
like, just like you're gonna get that nut eventually, but just calm down a little bit because you don't want me to get mad about it and then just be like, I'll just figure out a way to make my current system work just because
Sure.
I don't want to have to deal with the stress of having to deal with the salesperson. Like I don't like salespeople that stress me out. Is that fair enough to say? Like,
Me either.
I mean, I don't like being like feel like I stepped onto a car lot. And it's the same reason when I buy cars, I buy through a broker agency. I have them go to the lot and do the work for me. And I pay them $600 flat fee. And then you know what? A car, the exact car that I want, shows up in my driveway. They bring it to me and I fill out 5 pieces of paper. And that's how I buy cars. Like I don't go deal 16 hours sitting on the car lot, have to be like, oh,
Neither.
you get this Scotch
Yeah.
guard off of
Ever
here. I
again.
don't want any of that. But no, like I don't want to be stressed out by the process. I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel informed, and I want to feel
Yeah.
no pressure. And the people that give me the least amount of pressure are usually the ones that get the deal. Like I just made a massive change to our tool internally, and my sales team that I worked with, he was comfortable. He was funny. He just put the time in. He didn't be like, we need to close. If anything, it was me pushing his ass faster than like when I wanted things done. But the guy was such a pleasure to work with, that I have now been expanding the use of our tools, and I just ping him. I'm like, "Hey, bro, it's like, just send me a contract that does this, and we'll iron out the details back and forth over email." And then it's just been such a pleasure. It's just such a refreshing way than dealing with all of the bullshit that usually comes with having to say no and then them getting mad and offended at me. And like what I said on another thing was a no right now doesn't mean no forever.
Right.
And I think salespeople need to understand that. And like just stay in my Rolodex and check in with me. Like you are always really good about checking in with me on things. Hey, do you need anything? Especially when like I'm already assigned with the product. And like you still, even though you're at Forder, you still reach out to me and you ask how things are going. And then I'm sure if I said everything sucks, you'd be like, you want to give it a shot, and I might be more open to that just because of a relationship. So, what
Hmm.
are your thoughts around all that?
Um, I hate to just keep responding with questions, but since I've never been like in a buyer position on that
Yeah.
side of the table, I was, a desk analyst. I like to crunch my numbers and do the things. So I never really worked with vendors on the merchant side. Um, so how do I'm trying to think of like the most concise question because you just said a lot of different things and hit on a lot of different points. So I think one of the reasons, I mean, aside from the push to their paycheck, I think one of the reasons that sales teams sometimes push for a contract, especially in our industry, is because of how quickly data changes, right? Like consumer data is constantly, I guess, behavioral data. So consumer data is constantly changing. The way that fraudsters are attacking different merchants and different exploiting different things is always changing. So whatever analysis a team has done for you in the past in terms of the impact, whether it's a retro study, a point in time analysis, a POC, or doing like a data exercise, looking at like, okay, where are your rates today? What are the different things that you'd like help
Yeah.
from us from? Where do we think we can make an impact? And the further we get away from that initial analysis, that I think more likely it is that that might not be true anymore, and then we end up having to redo the analysis anyway.
Yeah.
That
I,
I
I
have
think like
happen
either
across
way,
the board.
if there's a no at one time because the analysis wasn't what we wanted it to be, at the same on the inverse of that, the same time is like, yeah, you guys weren't the right fit for the analysis at that time. But now, a year and a half later, there is a new type of attack that's happening, and you guys might be a better fit for that. So I'd like you
Sure,
to reanalyze the data. And like sometimes people try and charge for that. I had when I first started this company, one of the major fraud preventers was trying to charge for a POC, and I know some people charge for POCs, but if I'm about to give you $1 million a year for like the next decade, you are not charging me $20,000 to see if I
sure.
want to write you checks. That's just never going to happen. So
That
anybody that
makes
ever tries to come at me with a for charge POC, I would just skip me in your Rolodex and keep on moving. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that totally makes sense. In the event where it's like not a no, and we've done like a sales team has done an analysis for you, and the sales process is taking a long time, and then they start to get pushy. If maybe I'm going really off track there. But like that's an instance where I can see the salesperson being pushy for
I
that
can
reason.
tell you
Like,
things happen. So let
yeah,
me tell you some
things
things that
happen.
happen during sales cycles in my life. Um, at my last company, I was in a sales cycle with a vendor. COVID happened. So now my business, Ticketmaster, was massively affected by COVID. So I'm probably not going to spend additional money on additional software when we're in a complete cost saving mode to try and trim as much as we can the whole time. At this company, also was looking and evaluating software to see if I was in the right mood. Our business is we're heavily in Russia normally.
Yeah,
25% of our business is in Russia. And all of a sudden we can't do business with Russia. So I'm not super inclined to all of a sudden, like I had already done some data analysis, but I'm not inclined to all of a sudden make a huge change because now I'm trying to again cut costs, evaluate the software that we have right now. How can we better use it for what we need right now so we don't spend money? Like I still have to maintain profitability in my businesses despite the circumstances that are happening in the world around me. So sometimes that means halting a process that I'm in the middle of. And it's not I don't mean it to be a dick, but that's just the reality of the situation that happens in business sometime. And
yeah,
I think that salespeople need to be a little more understanding of that. Now, I still understand that that's how you put food on the table is signing deals and getting commissions. But maybe a business that's selling something needs to change the underlying payment structure so that their people don't go hungry
okay.
if I'm not buying something today, you
Yeah,
know?
totally. And that's something that's out of all of our hands.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes like to the same tipping culture where people get all pissed about like 20, 25, 30% tips now are the options on the screen. And like people get pissed, like, why didn't you tip this person? I'm not saying I don't, I'm a very generous tipper, everybody. But at the same time, like, why isn't that business paying? Like, why are
Yeah,
they relying on their customers to pay the wages of their employees,
yeah.
you know? So, yeah.
No, it's totally fair.
It really boils down to do your homework around the people that you're trying to sell to,
Yeah.
understand their business, have a little bit of an
Honestly,
understanding of the business. I think that that's super important.
yeah,
That you need to understand how ticketing works, how marketplaces work if you're going to be like a
totally.
marketplace,
That makes a huge difference, whether
digital
it's
delivery, those things. Like because
yeah.
some tools are stronger in certain areas than others.
Mhm.
And then this is a thing that's kind of a newer thing that I think you guys might do it too, but a percentage base. So With some of the
Yeah.
newer tools, it's not a flat fee. It's a percent of like the approved orders is the
Yeah.
cut.
It's like a
Now,
percent of the value of that transaction.
yeah.
It's usually
Now,
points. Yeah.
I would say that that works for probably the large majority of people that are selling their own shit. Um, but for people like marketplaces that aren't and they have
Yeah.
to give a cut, that doesn't always work for those people. So sometimes, granted, you can even tie it like a fixed fee, a percentage of a sale, like you can forecast your fees. Same thing if you have 30,000 sales in a day, 5 cents, like you can project that. But it's usually a lot easier explain a flat fee
Like a
to,
platform fee? Like,
yeah. So let's say
yeah.
let's say I'm selling t-shirts that you've designed on your thing. So I'm a marketplace for you. So people come on my site, you set up your little store, you made a t-shirt, I sell it for you, and then I give you that, and then I take a cut of the percentage, less fees. So taking a different a fee that slides around different prices based on like how much the value of the
Yeah,
merchandise I
like
sold
adhered. Yeah.
can be shitty if you're like, I took $20 on this one, but I took $5 on this one. It's both a t-shirt, but it's just the price. When I can say, hey, I took 5 cents. Like 5 cents is how much it is,
Yeah.
People, so the higher the price of the item, the more profit that they make, blah, 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 blah. I just say, like, for me, and I've come from a marketplace in the past, that it was a lot easier for me to the clients on the other end to pass along a fixed fee than it was a percentage based fee to them.
Yeah.
Just
That
keep that
totally
in
makes
mind when you're doing pricing structures. Like, there isn't a one size fits all pricing
yeah. So
structure,
like a fixed rate versus a
a
percentage
percentage rate.
variable.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like platform fee structures? So like maybe there's like a couple of different types of products that you're going to be
Mhm.
buying from a team, and they say, hey, like because you process this much volume, this is like your platform fee every month. And then if you just like
So it's
it's
like the flat fee, basically the minimum that runs underneath.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
So if you exceed
yeah.
that for whatever reason, there's like a double like not a double,
Yeah.
like a maybe you pay a little bit more, or maybe there's like something that you can eat into, or if you have rollover from the last year, those types of things.
So I
How
was
does
just looking at a deal that another company is working on with a covered model vendor, kind of like you guys are, and they have there's a platform fee in there. But
we are not exclusively covered.
well, I think that most people aren't anymore, but that's like that's the
Actually,
lead in
hate.
that happens.
We actually not hate. We're trying to move away from selling coverage because it just doesn't make sense. We hindsight is 2020, as we know. It's something that works for some vendors, and it's something that especially like
I am super
younger
happy about that.
merchants really want. But it just doesn't make sense from a cost perspective, either for you as a merchant or for us. So
I
just
think
throw
that,
that in there.
so my opinion on covered models is it's up and down. So, like, I use a product that has a covered model now, but I have always said that I think that having a covered model is not ideal because it disincentivizes the fraud tool for accuracy.
Mhm.
It if they could just pay for it using VC money or profit money to be wrong and get an additional approval, it doesn't necessarily always equal the right. And I've used a covered model company in the past that because they just didn't care as much, they were incentivized to approve as many orders as possible and just try to play the numbers game as if we had never thought of that as fraud people before. They actually put me in the visa program almost immediately.
Wow.
And that sucked because I think people
Yeah,
sometimes do forget, and I don't know if it's always said in the sales pitches on these, that
I
these
do a
covered
lot of
model things
education on that.
yeah, it's like, yeah, they're paying for your chargebacks, but you still have
They're
compliance
still
on
on the
from
hook.
your
Yeah.
processor and the issuer side that you need to worry about. So, yeah, you might not financially be on the hook for it, but you are still compliancely on the hook for it. Is compliancely even a word? We're going for it.
Quietly, I don't know.
Compliant another thing that comes up too is, I remember the bad reps. I think I kinda mentioned this before, that I remember the bad reps, I remember the companies, but if I see those bad reps, like, jumping around to other companies, I immediately have a negative thought of that
Yeah.
company, that new company, and sometimes I'm like, "Aw," because I like the company that person went to, and I'm just like, "Dang, did they not vet them?" Or maybe I just had a really bad experience with them. I'm sounding like a huge dick on this because, like, I just all the negatives, and we're almost to the positives, I promise people, but, it's just the negatives are always hard. Like, these are things that just, like,
Yeah,
grind my
yeah. It's
gears,
like there's that like anecdote that folks love to throw around in like the CX industry where it's like, when you look at the reviews on like, Twitter or whatever, it's not the people who are super happy that like write
Yeah.
tweets. to companies. It's the people who got really pissed off by like whatever waiter or their food was bad or whatever. You know what I mean? It's that same kind of idea, I think, that's transferring over here. Like
And
a bad experience with someone is something that's kind of hard to get over.
yeah, and I think that like that customer experience episode that I did, we kind of touch on that, like how only like 1 in 25 people actually reach out about their experience. So like there's could
Yeah.
be negative, could be positive in all of those, but like of the 25 people that had a bad or positive experience, only one of them is going to let you know that they had it. So it could be bad. But I think like you kind of mentioned like to turn it back around, on this like following the bad people around. Like you also mentioned earlier, what about the redemption? What about sending an email apologizing or not even apologizing, but just
Like
like being like, hey,
acknowledging,
might have got that right. Yeah, acknowledging. That's a good way to put it. I think that in these sorts of instances, like even if like you fucked up at the beginning, um, sending a simple email like that might take you off the shit list, if that makes sense.
So I guess if I have to ask, and if you had to answer as concisely as possible, so like maybe 2, 3 reasons, what puts someone on the shit list? Whether it's for you or like generally, like in your opinion, generally within the industry, what is something that people like sales reps will do that like kind of gives them a bad rap?
So the number one thing that'll put you on the shit list forever is going around me after I tell you no. If you go to another person in my industry, or not in my industry, but in my company, and you like go to like my boss or my boss's boss or to our CTO or something like that, or go to my parent company and say, "Hey, I talked to Jordan. We tried to sell our product. He said no. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. It seems like because
Mm,
we got a lot of value. Like I'm gonna roast you forever. I'm gonna roast your
okay.
company forever. Uh, I'm never gonna do business with you. I'm gonna be extremely unhappy, and that is an unredeemable thing.
Okay.
To me, that is
Yeah.
completely unredeemable. I
Yeah.
had it happen at when I was at Ticketmaster with a company that was not strong. They're still not strong. They they're not even really a fraud player. They're better in the abuse space than they are in the fraud space. And I am completely satisfied with the solutions that I had for my piece of the business. And I said, no, I do not need this product. And they went to Live Nation, our parent company, and
Mhm.
tried to say to our president of treasury that I don't even know how they got to him, but, like, I had a really good relationship with him, that I had said no and that I was wrong and I probably didn't know what I was talking about and that somebody else should take a look at it. And immediately they obviously send me an email to, like, say, "What do we know
Yeah.
about this? What's going on with this?" You know? And then I have to explain what's happening, and then I'm angry typing, like, if I'm angry typing a response to that, why we don't need it, why it's
Yeah.
unnecessary, only to get the response back that this says, "Okay," and then that person says, "No, thank you." I've had, multiple people go around me, but this one
Okay.
company is just a big offender of it, and I think they do it.
Okay.
It's happened at multiple companies.
Yeah.
So
So
that's number
so
1. Yeah.
okay, let
Another one is, I guess, putting time on my calendar is a pretty bad
yeah.
one,
That's
and
one
getting
I've
my
heard a
like,
lot.
a really bad cold email. I think let's use that as number 2, a really bad cold email. My name wrong, like, putting time on my calendar, and overpromising stats that you really don't know about. Like, that
Okay.
just really, really bothers me, so that'll put you on the shit list. And the 3rd one is, having a bad in-person persona. Uh, so some of these companies, when they come in, especially the new hotness companies that raise like $100 million that we've never heard of, that come out of left field, um, they come in really arrogant in this space for someone that's never been in this space. And they try to talk like they're hot shots. They act like they're hot shots. They come walking into the conference in their matching shirts, and they try and peacock all around in there,
Sure.
and it just bothers me. It bothers me that like it's you come from nowhere and you act like you know everything, and
Mhm.
that's not super good in this industry, in my opinion. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Um,
I get people have to make a splash because it gets
yeah,
people
yeah. So
talking.
I think part of it is, trying to do the make a splash thing. And part of it is like it's kind of coming back to what um I was talking about at the very beginning, which is that um a lot of folks don't get past like the initial layer of messaging that companies will develop. Like we can solve this problem that's been
Yeah,
around forever. They just don't get very far past that. And I think companies that you've just described the folks that you're seeing are the ones that aren't getting past that first layer of messaging. Like, there are probably folks on the product side or the development side, like R&D, who are really experienced, who do know what they're doing, and that's probably why the product got funding. And it's like, it's not your fault for feeling offended and, like, annoyed by these guys that come in and, like, act like they're hot shit.
That's why
Like,
I do like.
your impression of those, like, the people you just described, I think is accurate. I just think that, like, on the back end, like, it's tough. No, it's kinda like, where's the balance, you know?
Yeah, bring the product people. Like, bring the
Yeah,
product people to the conferences. Don't bring the salespeople and the CEO. Like, I get the CEO wants to come kick it, but, like, maybe show, like, the R&D. So one of the things that I like to do, especially when I see new companies, is, I go to their LinkedIn page, and if you click into their business and you click on the jobs, and you can see what types, like, how many people are in types of roles. So you can see sales, you can see R&D, you can see, admin, all that. And if they got like 50,000 salespeople and 15 people in R&D, we're probably not, they're not going
yeah.
to be long for this
Yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah.
So you got to, like, if I see more people in the technology R&D side than I see in the sales side, there we go.
Yeah, that
Because
makes sense.
especially when you're a new company, you can cover the whole country with 2 or 3 salespeople. Like, you
Mhm.
really can. So that's just how it is. So spend that VC money, that $100 million check you just got, spend it on making a damn product instead of buying
Yeah.
t-shirts. So,
So, as it specifically when it comes to what you see is going around you, is there a more graceful way to potentially just reach out to other contacts in your organization that isn't, hey, I
mm,
talked to Jordan already. He said no, because, like, speaking selfishly from, like, Porter's perspective, we have an offering that touches multiple parts of the business,
yeah,
right?
so
So
that's
it's like,
a
okay,
good
maybe
point.
you don't have a need for fraud right
So,
now, but we have, I don't know,
mhm,
like, identity stuff, and maybe you don't own
sure.
identity.
So, if I don't own something, I will tell you.
Okay.
If if you talk about your other offerings and I talk about them, and I have knowledge of those and I say no, don't do it.
Okay.
Like, um, if very good about saying I don't own login or I don't own account create. Your product is that this is the people you need to talk to. I'm very good about that. If I if I say no to a product outright, I own that decision to say no at my company
Mhm.
everywhere. Everywhere that product could fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I I might know a tool that we already have in those places, and we might be very happy with that tool. And we've talked about on other podcasts, I interface with my security teams for their stuff, for their needs. So I know what
Yeah.
tools they're using and I know their level of happiness with those tools. I also do pay attention to the security industry too. So I do know tools that are in that space.
Okay.
So I would not want to tell my security team, to take a known amazing cybersecurity tool and drop a different tool that started out as a fraud tool in that place because the
Totally.
technology
Yeah.
probably just isn't gonna quite be there yet.
Okay. That
Now, it's
makes
not a no
sense.
forever, but,
Yeah.
I would, if I don't redirect you to those people directly, don't start calling them,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
I think that's a totally valid perspective. Not perspective, but like a stance. Like, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I think it makes more sense to be respectful of the relationship that we may or may not have built yet. And it sounds to me like it's more on, like, my reps and myself to maybe just ask, like, better follow-up questions when it is a no.
Yeah, like, "Hey, what are
Like,
you
maybe we
guys
haven't
working on?"
talked about
Like,
everything yet.
you wanna be
Exactly.
picking, I know you wanna pick the brain, as you said, but
Mhm.
if you can get the people on the phone and you could just say, "What are your current focuses? Like, what are you worried about
Yeah.
right now?" And they may or may not give you a truthful answer, but if you have a list of things that are ATOs a concern for you, is, like, rewards scraping a concern for you,
Yeah, INR is
what
a big one
outside
right
of fraud?
now.
Because
Yeah.
like, what you guys do with fraud, okay? But you also know what you guys do with other things, but that might not be a concern. Like, some people don't even have accounts on their websites. So you don't need account security because they don't even have a fucking account.
Mhm.
So, like, you have to think about things like that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think that's a good segue into what does work really
What
well.
does work? Okay, so I like steak dinners,
I know.
at fancy restaurants, really fancy restaurants like Michelin stars and
Who
above.
doesn't?
Right? No. But, no, I think, like, just, like, as much as I joke about like the steak dinners on all these things, um, I think the time that like having a lunch or having a dinner that you get to build a rapport with a client is pretty like you stop talking about work and you start talking about life. And I think when
Mhm.
you guys find common ground in life, um, it goes a long way. Like I knew about your life. I knew about your husband. I knew what he does. Like I know where you guys live. I know what you guys are into. And no, that didn't come from doing Zoom calls about sales. That came from our lunches and our dinners that we've
Yeah.
had, going to a
Years.
baseball game when there was
Yeah.
an amazing football game on. Like those sorts of things.
Wasn't my
Like
call. Sorry.
yeah, I know. Hey, with the box at Giant Stadium, what is it? It's what's it?
I
It's
don't
not
know.
Oracle Park. I don't know. AT&T Park now or something. I don't know. It's one of those two. But that was a very nice box. But it was a really 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 good football game on that night. But we made the best of both worlds. But like I think like those sorts of the time that you have on those things goes a long ways. And if I'm trying to sign $1 million deal for over the couple years, a couple $100 steak dinner isn't gonna break the bank on your guys' profitability on that. Just
Mhm.
so any sales managers or any CEOs are listening, like when you're doing those expense reports, there usually is a larger payoff. So maybe don't worry about that second drink that everybody
Yeah,
got, you know?
totally. So I'm curious, like, so if you get emails from folks that maybe you've interacted with a couple of times and it's just like there's no business relationship yet, but they're like, "Hey, I'm in your area, want to grab a drink or
Yes.
grab a coffee." Is that
Yes.
something that you think feels fraught, or is that something that you
Nope.
think works really well?
That's I will if someone's in my area and they're like, "Hey, I know we've just been chatting about this. Just wondering, like, if you wanna go grab lunch or grab a drink real quick, like, I'm over here seeing another client." That it works so much better. Like,
Cool. I mean, I
I have
agree, but
I have another vendor, and actually one of your people, was at this meeting, uh, but at Christmas time, like, there's a vendor that I kind of work with, but not really, and they're like, "Hey, we are having a dinner for in Newport for the boat parade. Would you like
oh
to
yeah,
attend?" And I was like, "Hell yeah," because I always wanted to go to the boat parade, and I had a really nice dinner. They showed their new product roadmap and learned a lot about their product, and now we have conversations. Just like you and I, like I happened to be in Phoenix one time, and you're like, "Well, hey, let's go get a drink." And I made time to go get a drink with you at that awesome place. What was it called? I
bitter
send
and
people there still.
twisted.
Yeah, Bitter
Yeah,
and Twisted.
bitter
That
and
place is
twisted.
bomb.
Downtown
Everybody
Phoenix,
go there. Yeah, that
really
place is
cool. Yeah,
amazing. I send
it's
people
really
there all the
fun.
time.
Cool, me too.
So I think like, and also after the steak dinners, like there's don't expect a line on like a sign on the dotted line the very next
Yeah,
day. Like
I
there's
think
still going to
that's
be a
that's
time.
something that everyone could be a little bit better about. It's like, "Oh, we had such a great time. Now let's talk business." And it's like,
Hmm.
there's like a,
Let the steak
um
digest, everybody.
yeah, there's like a rising period, like if you're thinking about making bread, like, "All right, we had a great time putting the dough together, whatever. Now it's gotta sit.
There you
Need some
go. Look at
time."
you throwing in
Yeah,
the little metaphors there.
wasn't my best, but that's okay.
Hey, it'll work. But hey, but in that sense, making bread, you could double entendre here. Making bread on the sale and making bread
Okay, it was
really.
good.
See, it's better than you thought it was. So another thing is, like there's a balance between like what you give and what you're trying to take from the merchant too. So again, back to the steak dinner, like I want the dinner, I want to come have drinks with you and everything. That doesn't all of a sudden open up to a every single day call.
Yeah,
We might be able to talk about putting another 30 minutes on the calendar next week to maybe talk about it a little more, but like not every day. Like not
yeah.
every day. And
To throw
and then
another
after
food yeah, to throw
if
another
there's not a
cooking
fit,
metaphor,
yeah.
watch
If
water
go for it.
watched water never boils. Just to throw another cooking
What
metaphor
is
in
it?
there. Watched water never boils. Have you ever been, like,
Yeah.
cooking pasta or something and you're, like,
No,
staring at the pot, waiting for it to boil?
I was very much, boiling this tea water for this throat coat tea that I use before I record these, and, it didn't boil, and I lost patience and
See?
pulled it out of
See?
the microwave. Yes, I microwaved water. Steve, if you're listening
That's
to this, I
okay.
apologize.
I have an electric kettle.
See,
That saves
that's what Steve, the guy that did
Yeah.
he did the one, but he's English, and he probably had a heart attack right there, and I said I'd microwave my water because I don't have an electric kettle because 'cause I'm a coffee drinker 99% of the time, except for when I record these, I drink throat coat tea to make sure that I don't, screw it up, but Yeah. So a relationship without actually selling works every time, every single time. So it's an art form. So actually having conversations Chase Foster is, I always use him as an example of an excellent salesperson because he's been to a bunch of different companies and I always take his call too. But he's just like, let's go have lunch. Let's go have dinner. Like when he's in town, I always catch a game with him. I always catch dinner with him. When I'm at a conference, he always books a dinner with me. And I might not be a client right now, but his work always pays off for me becoming a client. So like it's just the long haul. But him, I got invited to his 40th birthday party. I'm not going to be able to make it. Unfortunately, I wanted to, but that was super cool. Like that's the type of relationship that we have. And when I
Hmm.
when I start to form friendships also over these sales, like we start to have a little bit better rapport. So try to become friends with these people. Don't just look at them like as a giant walking around dollar sign.
Hmm.
Look at them as like real people. Like you're in this industry now. It's a small industry. You're gonna see me. You never know where I'm gonna wind up. Like I've had salespeople try to flat out ignore me before when I've asked for things, and then the next thing they know, I'm at Ticketmaster, and they're like, "Oh, how about?" They start barking up that tree, and I'm like, "How about when you were a dick to me?" No. How about no?
Yeah.
So it's long haul relationships in this industry because
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere. We're all going to be here for a while. You want to be here for a while, so I would highly recommend forming a long relationship. So what are
And
your thoughts there?
and I hard agree, and if only because I've said this for years, and I tried to get email, I just make T-shirts out of it. But I kind of like silly little phrase I started saying was "fraud people are the best people." Um, I mean, of course, like stroking my own ego a little bit. I was a fraud person before I became a fraud vendor. Just everyone that I've connected with in this industry is so much fun, so intelligent, so just like interesting to get to know and talk to. Not only from like the relationship perspective, but also when it comes to developing a business relationship. Because I think the way that folks in the fraud industry and who touch fraud at all have such a cool way of problem solving, and it's just, like, one of the most, like, fun and exciting collaboration experiences I've ever had is getting to know new folks in the industry and kind of coming to understand how they think about problems that I might think about in a different way. So I just think that I mean, like, hard agree, I guess?
There we go. That's a
Yeah,
nice way to put it. Yeah. Um, you know, one of the things like older companies that like have been around for a long time, like they typically have like salespeople that have been there for a really,
yeah,
really, really long time. So
yeah,
I like to see my salespeople stick at companies for a long time. Now I know, as we said earlier, everybody's got to get that bread. And some opportunities at companies are a little more lucrative than others.
mhm,
So sometimes you might join a company and you're trying to
yeah,
sell a product and you don't
sometimes it's the
realize
luck of
it's
the draw.
yeah, but sometimes you land those companies that have, like, longevity and you could be there for a while. So I do tend to make relationships the relationship building tends to last better and work better for more established companies for me.
Yeah,
That's how it is, but, like, granted, you came from a new company, when I met you, and now you're on your second one, and Forder's pretty established now. They've been around for almost a decade as far as I know, right?
mhm,
They, yeah, I mean, it's the companies that when you get your foot first in the door, it's, like, kinda where you start is not always where you're gonna land, but as long
exactly.
as those companies last. But,
Yeah,
I said it earlier too, is like for salespeople, like as we're going through this relationship, if you take more time to build a relationship with me, you will understand my business more. So when you understand my business more, you can sell to my business more, and that'll take care of you longer. So like Chase Foster's another good example is like he knows me and he knows my business. So any company that he joins, he knows where the fit is for his product in my
right.
company, and if there is a fit even to begin with. So
Mhm,
that's super if you really understand the people that you're working with, you'll understand their business. So,
exactly. That's a much more succinct way of saying what I was saying. So again,
hey,
hard agree.
there we go. Hard agree. I like that. The logo slide is always something that always cracks me
Ugh,
up. I think
don't get
that
me started.
people think that works more than it does.
It does no. I have major qualms, but
I
anyone
always like
supporter who
seeing
listens to
companies
this
that
already knows.
I like seeing companies that like I have worked for and or companies that I'm like really good friends with the people that work there, and I know specifically if or where they use the tool. There's one company that has a big slide and it has a logo on it of a company, and I know damn well that they only use it in like the smallest corner chunk of the business that they didn't
Yeah,
want to deal with. and the
Mhm.
overall business is nowhere near that. So I always think
Yeah.
it's funny. Logo slide. Sometimes I'll call them out in the middle of things, but just yeah, keep that in mind, folks. That's not as effective as you always think it is. But
Yeah.
you know. And I think having realistic expectations of what you're going to deliver is super helpful. I recently did a big RFP on our payment processor, and we had one of the companies came in, and they're a really good company, really well known company, and they were very honest about where their strengths and their weaknesses were, and they're like, we
Mm.
can help you out in these specific places,
Yeah.
but we won't be able to help you here. And it was really refreshing because everybody else that had come into those meetings had been like, we could take all of your business and we could do it better than everybody. And, like, I know damn well, like, some of those people don't work well in APAC, some of them don't work well in EMEA.
Yeah.
Like, it's just how it is, and, like, this company came in and was very, very honest about where the like, "We're strong here, we're really strong here, we ain't got no business here, so you find
Yeah.
somebody else there." And I think that being more honest about that, and, like, it comes back to, like, there isn't no silver bullet, be like, "Hey, like, we can
Yeah.
really help you with the decisioning, but the identity piece we really need, or we can really help you with the decisioning and the identity, but the behavioral piece, you might need to find somebody else." But good
Mhm.
news, we work with these vendors and they plug in super well, is is a lot better. And then also, like, people, like, just kinda stay away from the buzzwords. Like, if you're gonna start using buzzwords like machine learning and AI, especially in the world of Chat GPT, like, make sure you know what your product actually does with those things, because if I ask now, if you can demonstrate,
Okay.
like, if you can real life demonstrate what it's doing, like, that's a whole different thing. Like, I've had some really cool demos where they were showing real time machine
Mm.
learning on my exact data. Now that's a lot more effective, than your logo slide. Just saying.
Totally fair. Yeah, my first reaction to you saying, "Don't use buzzwords," is I think I wrote this in the notes too, but, like, it's kind of there I see them less as buzzwords now and more like things that you have to say in order to be taken seriously, but to your point, like, if you're gonna say them, at least be able to back up what it is that you're describing, because sometimes people say AI and they really mean machine learning. I just had a
Yeah,
short circuit.
it's okay. Say
And
it
they are
again. Say it again right now. They really
machine
mean
learning.
hang hang on.
And they are 2 different things, right? Or, like,
They
what they
are.
mean by modeling, what they mean by having multiple models. Um, I think that's where the distinction comes in, like, it is just a buzzword until you can ante up and show that you actually know what you're talking about, and you
Yeah.
have proof that you're using those things.
I think that people like that also have, like, a pretty good understanding of the competitors in the marketplace to have a lot of strength over the others, like, especially, like, the new salespeople that are coming in, like I said at the beginning of this, like, they only know their product. They don't know what the other people do, so, taking this time to sit your ass down and do some market research, and if you can get people on the phone, maybe talk about their experiences with some of those other companies, um, you could probably be more effective in your approach to the overall strategy,
Mhm.
so, yeah, and it's like, and then I have the note on here I just wanna say, because I think I said it on the last podcast, but, about the covered model, we talked about that, and, like, used to call it the cover your ass model, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what it used to be called back in the day, but, still on the hook for the thing, but we talked about that already. So,
Mhm.
I mean, those are really some of the things I think with the positive stuff really boils down to relationship building, and that relationship
Yeah.
it goes beyond just sending an email. Like, you need to start to learn the people, and you only get to
Yeah.
to have that relationship by spending time with the people, and you only get to spend time with the people by having a real good approach to encountering the person up front.
Yeah.
A positive encounter up front on the cold leads to a longer relationship and more money in your wallet. So, what are your final thoughts?
I think in general, the way just like I think that we could all do better, especially on my side, just like treating the people we are working with like people, like humans, not just a check or not just like a contact. You know what I mean? I think that that is probably like what I would say is the biggest takeaway, especially from a sales perspective, is making sure that we're keeping in mind that you are an actual person who does
Yeah. What did
a
my buddy
really
Steve
like a lot
says,
of really awesome work.
the human being is as valuable as the human doing. That's my buddy Steve says.
That's
So,
really poignant. That's really
right?
poignant.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of him when he said that.
And
He's
I
coming
think another
back. He's gonna come do a
oh,
storytelling
cool.
episode with me.
Ooh,
So,
I love those. Cool. Cool. I think the other thing I would say is don't be afraid of Jordan Harris.
yeah. Oh,
He's a really
I'm not as bad and I'm not as negative as some people say in the industry. I know there
yeah.
was after last MRC, there was some I don't even know where it came from or what it was, but some negative people out there
I'll
trying
set
to
him
say
straight.
negative things. Yeah,
No,
I
let
think
me
the
set the
industry,
record
I
straight.
think the overall industry already set them straight, and they were trying to make something out of nothing. It was actually a positive thing that I did, and they were trying to pretend it and spin it as a negative
Hmm.
narrative to try and I don't even know why get at me, but I think that the overall industry had responded to them and said, "Yeah, that's not going to happen." So yeah.
But I'm glad to hear that.
But hey, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. We went a little long here on this one because we just have so much to talk about. Uh, I really want to do thank you for providing your insight. I really wanted to
Thanks for
have
having
somebody
me.
on here that would like tell me the other side. As the last time when I did the sales recording, I didn't have a person that was on the other side. They were kind of more more aligned with my side.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice to have someone from the other side that
Yeah.
can give me the feedback as to the whys of those things. So I think
Yeah.
this was super valuable. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
We'll get this out before MRC. Everybody have a happy MRC. I promise I didn't mean it to be that negative. These are just the
It
things, but
wasn't.
just things to avoid, you know. But yeah, thank you again. Always good to see you. Are you going to be an MRC?
Oh, you know I am.
All
I
right. Well,
haven't been since 2019, and I'm so thrilled to be going back.
yeah. Hey, it's changed a lot. No, it hasn't.
Mhm.
It's exactly the same. They have a new food court, I'm told, and there's a speakeasy
Oh.
there. So Chase Foster got me a reservation at the speakeasy, so I'm very happy
Oh,
about
what a
that.
guy.
I know he's the best, and that's why I buy all his shit all the time.
There we go. Proof in the pudding.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming back, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
Thanks for listening to the show today. Again, I want to thank Sardine for being this episode's sponsor. Be sure to visit them at booth 210 at the MRC and learn all about them from the fraud squad themselves. From KYC, onboarding fraud, and payment fraud, with over 4,000 signals like device, email, and telco to AML monitoring, they ship new features every week and are exactly who you need in your ongoing fight against fraud. Like I said at the top of the show, you're not buying one of the best fraud tools in the market, but the whole fraud squad behind it. Please visit www.sardine.ai to learn more. Thanks again for listening.